Lorsqu'ils seront livrés à grande échelle, cela va avoir un impact sur le monde à une échelle que personne ne peut imaginer.
Eric Schmidt, l'ancien PDG de Google, vient juste de faire une interview à Stanford où il a parlé de beaucoup de choses controversées. À la base, l'interview était disponible sur la chaîne YouTube de Stanford. Mais quelques jours après, l'interview a été bannie de YouTube et partout ailleurs. Mais aujourd'hui, après maintes recherches, j'ai réussi à accéder à la vidéo de l'interview. Donc regardons-la ensemble et décortiquons les parties importantes de l'interview.
In the next year, you're going to see very large context windows, agents, and text action. When they are delivered at scale, it's going to have an impact on the world at a scale that no one understands yet. Much bigger than the horrific impact we've had by social media, right, in my view. So here's why. In a context window, you can basically use that as short-term memory. And I was shocked that context windows get this long. The technical reasons have to do with the fact that it's hard to serve, hard to calculate, and so forth. The interesting thing about short-term memory is when you feed you ask it a question, read 20 books, you give it the text of the books is the query, and you say, tell me what they say, it forgets the middle, which is exactly how human brains work too, right? That's where we are. With respect to agents, there are people who are now building essentially LLM agents, and the way they do it is they read something like chemistry, they discover the principles of chemistry, and then they test it. And then they add that back into their understanding, right? That's extremely powerful. And then the third thing, as I mentioned, is text action. So I'll give you an example. The government is in the process of trying to ban TikTok. We'll see if that actually happens. If TikTok is banned, here's what I propose each and every one of you do. Say to your LLM the following. Make me a copy of TikTok, steal all the users, steal all the music, put my preferences in it, produce this program in the next 30 seconds, release it, and in 1 hour, if it's not viral, do something different along the same lines. That's the command. Boom, 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 right? You understand how powerful that is. If you can go from arbitrary language to arbitrary digital command, which is essentially what Python in this scenario is, imagine that each and every human on the planet has their own programmer that actually does what they want, as opposed to the programmers that work for me who don't do what I ask, right? The programmers here know what I'm talking about. So imagine a non-arrogant programmer that actually does what you want, and you don't have to pay all that money to. And there's infinite supply of these programs.
And this is all within the next year or two.
Very soon.
Que ce soit en parlant d'Adair, de Devon, de Pythagora, ou simplement de l'utilisation d'agents collaborant entre eux dans le code. Il existe actuellement tellement d'options intéressantes pour les assistants de codage. Cependant, des IA capables de créer des applications complexes full stack ne sont pas encore tout à fait au point, mais cela viendra probablement bientôt. De plus, ce qu'il décrit en disant simplement « télécharge toute la musique et les secrets et recrée-les », ce n'est pas vraiment possible pour le moment. Évidemment, tout cela est protégé par des mesures de sécurité, et on ne peut pas simplement télécharger tout ça. En revanche, s'il dit « reproduit les fonctionnalités », cela c'est tout à fait faisable.
Those three things, and I'm quite convinced it's the union of those three things that will happen in the next wave. So you asked about what else is going to happen. Every 6 months I oscillate. So we're on it's an even-odd oscillation. So at the moment, the gap between the frontier models, of which there are now only 3, I'll review who they are, and everybody else, appears to me to be getting larger. 6 months ago, I was convinced that the gap was getting smaller. So I invested lots of money in the little companies. Now I'm not so sure. And I'm talking to the big companies, and the big companies are telling me that they need 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion.
Stargate is 100 billion, right?
They're very, very hard. Sam Altman is a close friend. He believes that it's going to take about 300 billion, maybe more. I pointed out to him that I'd done the calculation on the amount of energy required. And I then, in the spirit of full disclosure, went to the White House on Friday and told them that we need to become best friends with Canada. because Canada has really nice people, helped invent AI, and lots of hydropower. Because we as a country do not have enough power to do this. The alternative is to have the Arabs fund it. And I like the Arabs personally. I spent lots of time there, right? But they're not going to adhere to our national security rules, whereas Canada and the US are part of a triumvirate where we all agree on.
So these $100 billion.
Tout d'abord, nous n'avons clairement pas assez de ressources énergétiques pour atteindre une AGI. Ce n'est tout simplement pas possible pour le moment. De plus, Eric part du principe que nous aurons besoin de toujours plus de données et de modèles plus grands pour parvenir à l'AGI. Je pense que cela n'est pas forcément vrai non plus. Sam Altman a exprimé des idées similaires. Il a dit que nous devons être capables de faire davantage avec moins ou avec la même quantité de données, car nous avons déjà utilisé toutes les données que l'humanité ait jamais créées. Il n'en reste plus vraiment. Nous allons donc devoir trouver comment créer des données synthétiques qui soient utiles, et pas simplement de la répétition. Et nous devrons également optimiser l'utilisation des données que nous avons déjà.
You were at Google for a long time, and they invented the transformer architecture.
Peter. It's all Peter's fault.
Thanks to brilliant people over there like Peter and Jeff Dean and everyone. But now it doesn't seem like they've kind of lost the initiative to OpenAI, and even the last leaderboard I saw, Anthropic's Claude was at the top of the list. I asked Sundar this. He didn't really give me a very sharp answer. Maybe you have a sharper or a more objective explanation for what's going on there.
I'm no longer a Google employee.
Yes.
In the spirit of full disclosure, Google decided that work-life balance and going home early and working from home was more important than winning.
Du coup, c'est cette déclaration qui lui a causé des problèmes. Elle était partout, sur Twitter, dans les médias, quand il a dit que Google privilégiait l'équilibre entre vie professionnelle et vie personnelle, le fait de rentrer tôt chez soi et de ne pas travailler aussi dur que leurs concurrents pour gagner, ils ont choisi l'équilibre vie pro-vie perso plutôt que la victoire. Et c'est en fait une perception assez courante de Google.
And the reason startups work is because the people work like hell. And I'm sorry to be so blunt. But the fact of the matter is, if you all leave the university and go found a company, you're not going to let people work from home and only come in one day a week if you want to compete against the other startups.
When in the early days of Google, Microsoft was like that.
Exactly.
But now it seems to be...
And there's a long history of, in my industry, our industry, I guess, of companies winning in a genuinely creative way and really dominating a space and not making the next transition. It's very well documented. And I think that the truth is, founders are special. The founders need to be in charge. The founders are difficult to work with. They push people hard. As much as we can dislike Elon's personal behavior, look at what he gets out of people. I had dinner with him, and he was flying. I was in Montana. He was flying that night at 10 p.m. to have a meeting at midnight with X.AI. Right? Think about it. I was in Taiwan, different country, different culture, and they said that, and this is TSMC, who I'm very impressed with, and they have a rule that the starting PhDs coming out of they're good physicists, work in the factory on the basement floor. Now, can you imagine getting American physicists to do that? The PhDs, highly unlikely. Different work ethic. And the problem here, the reason I'm being so harsh about work is that these are systems which have network effects. So time matters a lot. And in most businesses, time doesn't matter that much, right? You have lots of time. You know, Coke and Pepsi will still be around, and the fight between Coke and Pepsi will continue to go along, and it's all glacial, right? When I dealt with telcos, the typical telco deal would take 18 months to sign, right? There's no reason to take 18 months to do anything. Get it done. It's just, we're in a period of maximum growth, maximum gain.
On lui a donc posé une question sur la concurrence avec l'IA et l'AGI de la Chine, et voici sa réponse. Nous sommes en avance, nous devons rester en avance, et nous avons besoin d'argent.
It's going to play a role or competition with China as well.
So I was the chairman of an AI commission that sort of looked at this very carefully. And you can read it. It's about 752 pages. And I'll just summarize it by saying, we're ahead, we need to stay ahead, and we need lots of money to do so. Our customers were the Senate and the House. And out of that came the CHIPS Act and a lot of other stuff like that. A rough scenario is that if you assume the frontier models drive forward and a few of the open source models, it's likely that a very small number of companies can play this game. Countries, excuse me. What are those countries, or who are they? Countries with a lot of money and a lot of talent, strong educational systems, and a willingness to win.
J'espère que cette première partie vous aura plu. C'est une vidéo qui m'a demandé beaucoup de travail de recherche, et donc si vous voulez voir la partie 2, n'hésitez pas à liker et à vous abonner. Sur ce, je vous dis à la prochaine. C'était Business 360. À plus.